We are celebrating 10 years of powering community through media here at the Laura Flanders Show. Make a year-end donation today at www.lauraflanders.org/donate and help us reach our goal of $40,000 by the end of the year. We don't take money from governments or huge corporations. Our show is powered by you. So thank you. Hi, I'm Laura Flanders, and this is the Laura Flanders Show, the TV and radio program that seeks to raise radical spirits by interviewing forward-thinking people with real models of shifting power from the worlds of arts, entrepreneurship, politics, and activism. White Women and Song. This time, looking back at the midterms, I ask some tough questions about white women voters and race, and get introduced to the high pinky salute across the border. I'm with the co-founders of Surge and Grammy Award winner Arturo O'Farrell this week on the Laura Flanders Show. It's the place where the people who say it can't be done take a back seat to the people who are doing it. Welcome. Record turnout, a flipped house, a female-fueled resistance that continued long after voting day. The 2018 midterms are going to be remembered for many things, but among all those, this mind-boggling statistic. In even greater proportions than they voted for Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton, white women voted for anti-choice Republican Brian Kemp over his progressive female opponent Stacey Abrams, an African-American Democrat, in Georgia's governor's race. In Florida, 51% of white women voters backed Donald Trump's favorite, former GOP Congressman Ron DeSantis, not Democrat Andrew Gillum, another African-American progressive. So what gives? I wrote last week that a whole lot of white women seem to be either spoiled or misguided. Are that many of us, in fact, really still invested in the spoils of white supremacy? Carla Wallace is a co-founder of the Fairness Campaign and Showing Up for Racial Justice, or SURGE. She's also a member of the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights Hall of Fame. Pam McMichael is the former executive director of the Highlander Center for Research and Education, also a co-founder of SURGE. Erin Healy is currently serving as the co-director of Showing Up for Racial Justice. As luck would have it, they are all in New York right now, and it gave me a chance to bring them in the studio. So I can't think of better people to work this out with. So help me. I mean, what did you see in Georgia? Pam, come on now. What's the story with white women?
It's a complicated story. It's a simple story, and it's a complicated
All right, start with the simple.
Start with the simple, that white is motivated by race, first and foremost. And it is a complicated story, and there are nuances that we need to break down in terms of how we figure out how to move forward together.
Carla, white is motivated by race?
Yeah, I think that what we keep forgetting is, as a country formed on slavery, colonialism, genocide, white supremacy, we keep looking at these sectors and assuming women should vote gender, right? Women should vote progressive, and yet white women are voting whiteness. And it's why we cannot move, we can't move the needle unless we're addressing the issue of race and how deeply it still informs the political narrative.
So it's not so much a problem with white women as our expectations of white women. Is that right, Erin?
Yeah, I mean, we can't keep making the assumption that, as Carla said, folks are going to vote along lines, a more oppressed identity. We see time over time that whiteness tends to be the thing that people choose over and over again.
And we should say this is not new. I mean, this was finally like the straw that said, okay, we have to do a show about this. But this has been true of white women, I think, going back to the early 90s. Certainly white voters.
Well, it's about whiteness, not just white women. And in that sense, Laura, we go all the way back to the founding of the country.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
All right, so now make it more complicated for me, because the statistics themselves are more complicated. It wasn't all white women. Break it down for me.
It's helpful not to paint all white women with that broad brush. It doesn't help us develop some of the strategies that we need to go forward. And in terms of these urgent times, it's maybe a little privileged to talk about progress, but also there is some progress in some of those statistics. And that if we can shift things even 3%, that has a huge impact on this country and who leads in terms of policy
3% of what?
Like when you think of 3%, 53% of white women voting for Trump.
Uh-huh.
Some polls say 52, 53, whatever. Okay. What would it take to just shift that at that level? Not that it's about voting just in and of itself, but the way those statistics are showing.
All right, so it has shifted for some people. I mean, white women who are not married, white women who are younger, white women who are LGBTQ, white women who are Jewish.
Right.
They seem to have their heads screwed on.
Yeah, and I think, Laura, you're heading exactly where we think that we need to be a setting strategy. Is instead of the broad brush, we need to look at which white women have the strongest basis to see that an agenda that serves racial justice, gender justice, etc., can serve them too. If it's only the other side that are going to white rural women, white working class women, if it's the only side that's making the argument that it's about the immigrants, it's about the black people, then there's no one talking to those folks about why a racial justice agenda serves all of us.
All right, so I want to travel with you into the land of the positive and the shift, but before we get there, we do have to talk about the spoils of white supremacy. I mean, there are real things, stuff that we get as white women. We get to be female in a world that doesn't really see the femaleness of women of color. We get to be, I don't know, sexy. We get to be celebrated in media, seen as beautiful in advertising and Hollywood. We get relative safety. So what do we do about all that stuff, Erin?
Well, that's very real, and that's part of what's really complicated about this body of work, is that we've got to hold both the benefits that we receive from white supremacy and also the possibility that folks might be able to see that transformation is possible and in our best interests.
And, Laura, when we look at who the we is of white women, there's a very different experience of our whiteness, or our white privilege, if you will, if you are a poor single mother. In Kentucky, some of the poorest folks in the country are white women. And we believe that those white women have everything to gain from an agenda that says we're going to lift everybody. And we know that when people of color, the vision for a world that in particular women of color, in particular, if I may, queer women of color are setting out there, actually is going to liberate all of us. And that's part of what we can be talking with folks about, what they're struggling with. And that's not happening. Instead, the we is kind of set up here with those women who are doing the best, white women who are doing the best.
You know whereof you speak. Go ahead, Pam.
Well, and just set up here a little bit with some disdain for who's not up here. And you can't organize, I mean, if you truly write off people, if you truly can't find, and I'm going to use the word love here, if you can't
It's allowed on this program.
Thank you.
I think it's in our word cloud. If it's not, it should be.
Beautiful, also. You can't organize people you can't love, and you can't organize people you can't relate to. And so there's this gap between, there's just a little bit of disdain sometimes as I'm not one of those.
Right.
I'm not one of those.
And
we are all of those.
This is the Laura Flanders Show. I'm Laura, here with Pam McMichael, Carla Wallace, and Erin Heaney of Showing Up for Racial Justice, or SURGE. It's a national network working to undermine white supremacy and make strides towards racial justice through community organizing, mobilizing, and education. We're unpacking what happened with white women voters in the midterms just passed and how SURGE is responding, leading as they pledge to with love and mutual respect. How to do it? There's more coming after the break. Meanwhile, here's Line in the Sand from Fandango at the Wall, a soundtrack for the United States, Mexico, and beyond, by Arturo O'Farrell and the Afro-Latin Jazz Orchestra. He'll be joining me later in the show to school me in the Fandango doctrine.
The stars look the same from where we are standing. Why can't we fix this mess we've made? Let's not forget that our fates are as one, just because we feel numb and betrayed. There is love, there must be something good, something strong between you and me. There is hope, we must try. If we don't, we'll regret it the rest of our lives, side by side. Forever, you and me, we are stronger together, hoping to find a path to forgiveness, knowing that pride always gets in the way. We all want a place where it's safe to be human, the welcome embrace of a brand new day. Let's not allow what we have to be lost just because of what someone might say. There is love, there must be something strong between you and me. There is hope, we must try. If we don't, we'll regret it the rest of our lives, side by side, forever.
Let's talk about how you do this work. The Fairness Campaign was a model of pulling together an unexpected coalition.
Right.
Surge has been doing the same. Talk about some of the roots of this work.
There's historical context and there's current context. And the current context in our founding was seeing that backlash against President Obama's election, not about him per se, but about understanding what that backlash meant. Enhanced white racism, white nationalism, white supremacy. And so some of us were on the phone talking to each other about we've got to respond. And also just conversations among ourselves and literally seeing and hearing the question, what are white people doing to step up in this moment? And so talking to each other, what are we doing to step up in this moment? So out of those conversations came the founding of Showing Up for Racial Justice.
Mm-hmm. And this is going back now to the very beginning of the Obama administration when this stuff was pretty visible. Mm-hmm. What were you seeing and who did you turn to for historical precedent?
Yeah, it's, I think one of the places that it really expressed was during the healthcare debates. Mm-hmm. Here we had a nation on the verge of potential healthcare for everyone, and yet those opposed to it used racism to undermine that coalition by saying, well, but then immigrants will get health care. Well, then those people will get health care. It reminds us that it was over 50 years ago, out of the Black Liberation Movement, that those of us who are white were asked to go back to our own community where racism lives and do that work. And that was based on the possibility that there could be common cause for a vision of an America that works for everybody. And instead, those in charge in this country, and even more in charge in this country now under the rise of white nationalism, are very adeptly using race to divide folks from what we need in this country. And we see that at the doors. We are door knocking in Louisville, Kentucky to end cash bail. And we're in poor and working class white communities. There are many of those folks who also have someone who was not charged guilty of anything yet, and are in jail because they can't pay the bail, while somebody with a credit card gets out right away. That's the potential for that mutual interest for women who are either incarcerated, poor white women, or have a loved one incarcerated. That's loss of job, potentially home, CPS investigating whether you can take care of your children. Those are some really deep places, and that's just one issue. That's just cash bail. We haven't gotten to, health care and other issues around the criminal justice.
And just quickly, because we mentioned it, the Fairness Campaign was about LGBT equality.
It was about expanding beyond that single issue identity focus. The Fairness Campaign in Louisville sought to add sexual orientation and gender identity to Louisville's existing civil rights laws, and Carla and I, as two of the co-founders, came out of the racial justice work. And so there was always, with us and other people involved, that frame of how these issues are connected and helping to move LGBT stuff beyond single issue identity, while at the same time securing some protection and humanity and dignity.
Yeah,
for
I mean,
LGBT
Louisville
folk.
achieved something pretty extraordinary back then.
Yeah, we had gender identity before New York or Chicago had it. Civil rights.
Which is to say, no discrimination allowed on the basis of
that's
it.
Right.
Yeah,
Congratulations. All right, so talk about the work that you're doing now. What evidence do you have that the strategy of a broad human rights agenda works?
Well, the work that we've been doing in Buffalo is one example where I've seen white women shift by really taking on a concrete organizing project that centers racial justice. Last year, we worked on a campaign to get rid of our incredibly racist sheriff aligned with white supremacist groups, and we knocked in majority white suburbs to unseat him.
Knocked on doors
And had conversations and with people, talking to them about the conditions in the holding center, talking to them about the number of people that had died or lost their lives in the holding center. And it was incredible to see people shift both on the doors, and I also saw people shift within my own family.
How so?
White suburban women cross the lines of class, both working class and upper middle class women, really have to engage with me. They saw us on the news. We made it an issue that people had to engage with. And I know that both the Democrats in my family, white women that were on the sidelines, voted in that election, and I know that Republicans told me in my family that they voted against the Republican sheriff. And so it's an example of we have to get in concrete fights. It's not enough to just say we're not those white women. We have to go talk to those white women in our families. We have to go knock on those doors of white women. We have to have actual concrete organizing programs that can shift people over
All right,
time.
so let's talk very concrete. Call up some friends. decide what you're going to work on. I mean, I'm guessing here.
Yep.
You literally then team up, buddy up, and go knock on a door and say, I want to talk about white supremacy? Does that work?
Well, we didn't start with white supremacy, but it's centered, among those of us who are leading. And we cannot avoid the race conversation. We start by talking about the sheriff, but then talk very explicitly about the racial discrepancy.
So give me, if you don't mind, give me an example of how those conversations go, because we don't see much modeling in our media, although we could.
Right, totally. I mean, it's knocking and it's being curious with people, asking if they know about what's happening, and if not, sharing some stories about people who have lost loved ones to the criminal justice system, either their lives or people that have been locked up. We work on this issue of bail that Carla mentions as well. So it's like sharing information and asking people, how does that feel? Do you think that's right? I mean, asking people to really sit with the reality of what's happening. And we don't ask a lot of white women to do that in this country in a really intimate and personal way that's also curious and invested in people shifting. We have to come at this with curiosity and some patience, more than we may feel like we have in that moment. But yeah, and people do shift over time. Not everyone, but as Pam said, if we can get some percentage of folks to join us, we have a shot at really shifting governing power in this country.
Another example in Louisville, Surge always has accountability partners, organizations led by people of color with the vision of what the liberation looks like. And in Louisville, we're partnered with Mi Gente Louisville, which is also a national organization, to get our police to stop collaborating with ICE in the raids of immigrant communities. And so our work was to go to the doors and have a conversation about, so what do you think it might feel like if your family, if suddenly, you weren't home when your child came back from school? Those are very visceral issues that when we say, can you consider, even though obviously a white family is not going to be facing that, poor white families face the issue of, oh my gosh, I'm not getting a paycheck this week. I don't know if I can take care of the children. Is somebody going to be questioning my motherhood? Those kinds of things.
You've also discovered some amazing things. I mean, you discovered there was a detention center that you didn't even know about right there.
Yeah, a detention court on the 11th floor of a building that was privately owned. Yeah. And LSurge was part of an action that a nonviolent direct action that blocked access. It interrupted that court. And so another thing that we found in Louisville from our door knocking, Laura, is we were door knocking in a predominantly white neighborhood, and we ran into all kinds of mixed race families, both Latino and white families, African American white families, Asian white, and the demographics are really shifting. This divide that and there's potential in that, finding that common ground about that our lives aren't the same, but there is some mutual interest in moving forward together.
So all of you out there who have been just thrilled by door knocking during this election campaign, this is the next thing you could do, right? I mean, there's no reason to stop door knocking.
Deep dive
now.
Door knocking,
No,
where it's not transactional about just getting somebody to the polls, but what's on people's minds and starting to build a relationship.
Yes.
So who wants to talk to how it's changed them doing this work? Aaron?
Oh, this work has been some of the most profound and deep work of my life. I mean, I've seen my own mom shift over time, which has been beautiful. I mean, it's opened up conversations. Conversations that have started with race have ended up talking about, me, my life, her life. I've learned things about her that never would have been possible without movement and community and this collective work. So I really do believe, just because of the people in my own family, and that a lot of transformation is possible, but we've got to center race in it.
Aaron, Carla, Pam, thank you so much. This has been a relieving conversation, although I feel I have work to do. Always a good inspiration. Thank you so much. People can find out more about Surge at our website. That was organizer and activist Erin Heaney, who's the co-director of Surge, along with the group's co-founders Pam McMichael and Carla Wallace. We're celebrating 10 years here at the Laura Flanders Show, where we like to believe that we're helping to build movement by bringing movement leaders into the media. Don't come across guests like ours in the media every day? Well, neither do we. For which we thank you, because it takes a village to make programming like this survive. Make a one-time year-end donation today, or better yet, become a sustaining member to help us reach our ambitious year-end goal of kicking our second decade off with a $40,000 investment. We're getting close to halfway there. How to give? You can make a one-time contribution or pledge to give a little every month at www.lauraflanders.org/donate. That's also where you can find all our archives and watch the show, should you prefer. Subscribers to this podcast receive additional mini-casts and my weekly commentary. This week's is on the buffoonery of New York housing and urban development official and Trump aide Lynn Patton, who wants to move into public housing. You can find out more about all of this work at www.lauraflanders.org. Subscribe. Next, I'm joined by Grammy Award-winning artist Arturo O'Farrell. Thousands of troops deployed to the U.S.-Mexico border by President Trump have spent weeks laying concrete and raising razor wire. What if they were making music, not walls? Our next guest is not mad. He doesn't actually think that Donald Trump or his troops are likely to take up partying on the border anytime soon. But people can, and that might actually connect people whom concrete and bad law have driven apart. Inspired by musician and retired librarian, Fandango Fronterizo is a sort of border-crossing festival that is now in its 11th year. Not long ago, acclaimed jazz pianist Arturo O'Farrell attended, with top-line musicians from all over the world, and the result is Fandango at the Wall, a soundtrack for the United States, Mexico, and beyond. Over 30 tracks recorded in Tijuana and New York. He wants the album to inspire people to adopt what he calls the Fandango doctrine, wherever they are. We're about to find out how to do that. First, a part of the video for Fandango at the Wall, Arturo O'Farrell's collaboration is produced by Grammy Award winner Kabir Segal and available via Resilience Music Alliance. Arturo O'Farrell is joining me in studio. I should say he is also founder and artistic director of the nonprofit Afro-Latin Jazz Alliance, as well as the Afro-Latin Jazz Orchestra. Arturo, welcome to the show, and thank you. That's just gorgeous.
It's beautiful. I was looking at the scenes and just remembering. It's kind of hard to believe that we did that. It's just, it mobilized an army of what seemed like thousands.
Now, you had people from all over the world. If people couldn't see the small print, who were some of the musicians you had there?
We had incredible musicians. We had Rahim Al-Hajj, Iraqi-born Udis, Saba Motalebi from Iran, Antonio Sanchez, the composer of Birdman for the film, MacArthur Fellow Regina Carter, the entire Afro-Latin Jazz Orchestra, and of course the incredible Jorge Francisco Castillo, who's the founder of the Fandango Fronterizo, and the wonderful musicians that he brought, including Ramon, Gutierrez Herrera, and Patricio Hidalgo, who are practitioners of the deepest art.
So I wasn't aware, forgive me, of the Fandango Fronterizo. I had no idea. In now 11 years, give me some of the backstory. And am I just been out of the loop for 11 years?
It's something that, it's something that's not front page news. It was in the New York Times, and that's how I learned about it. But what literally happens is that musicians, son jarocho musicians, which is a style of music from Veracruz, which is also known as Afro-Mexican music, and it was invented in Veracruz. So a group of musicians from the Mexican side gather with a group of musicians, practitioners of this art, at the border and actually play across the mesh. And what's very touching is that sometimes these are folks that are family and they're separated by the political border and they cannot physically see each other, but they come and they celebrate unity. And they celebrate unity at the very symbol that keeps them apart. And I find that so compelling and so beautiful and so magical and mystical. It destroys the idea that music and community and pueblo destroy physical barriers is something that affected me deeply. And so when I read about it, I contacted Jorge Kabir, my friend and executive producer, contacted Jorge. We went there and we said, we need to just be a part of this. And that's what we did. We didn't go to impose ourselves. We went to bring all these musicians to actually jam with them. And then we, recorded other stuff. But
now, you weren't there when the troops were there. I mean, more than your average number of troops. You recorded this before Donald Trump's most recent deployment. But was there anything about the border that surprised you, that was new? What was it like for you to be down there on the negative side, if you will, before you get to the...
That's funny. I find border patrol people a lot like police officers. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them are racist, some of them are not. But they're all caught up in a terrible cycle of hatred and violence. The tension in this nation has gone absolutely beyond the norm. And there's so much tension between people in authority and the rest of us that it's palpable. And I think that there's probably a good number of Border Patrol officers and Army that is stationed now at the border that wishes this whole thing would just go away. The truth of the caravan and the migrants that are coming is overblown. It's just crazy, and this clearly political agenda that the president is playing is almost a last grab, a desperate measure for attention, because he knows that this is the dying moment of that style of politicking.
So how did all those folks respond to you coming down with your musician friends? How do they respond to the Fandango every year?
It's funny because I think that they have a rough job. We didn't really get to interact with the Customs Borders Patrol. But I know that the people that attended this thing, it's a little bit like, I don't know if it's a combination between Burning Man and Woodstock. There was just this feeling of magic in the air again. People come from all over the world to learn son jarocho music, to participate in this festival. And the thing that touched me is that I have been a big band jazz musician for many years, and I know how difficult it is to make a living. And some of our musicians are very nonplussed, let's put it that way. And they were in tears.
Yeah.
And whenever you see the journeyman in tears, that's a powerful moment, because we harden ourselves in our day-to-day lives to do what we're able to do, and to break through that barrier and to really touch hearts is something that I find amazing. And
so now there's something known as the Fandango Doctrine, and you're a prophet of it.
I believe so. I think the Fandango Doctrine is that culture, community, conscience is more important than governance, is more important than xenophobia. It's even more important than profiteering by division. It's even, yeah, right. I know, hard to believe.
Even in America?
I think it's a worldwide trend. But it's interesting to me to see that people are really responding, and you can see that in the midterm elections. People are responding to some desperate need for a change in our attitude.
So if people want to do a Fandango where they live, as you're encouraging, what do they do?
Well, they go to, and it's really funny because the mesh at the border wall is just, there's just enough space to touch fingertips. So we were high pinking. So I'm going to try and make that an international symbol of Fandango Doctrine, the high pinky.
The high pinky.
Yeah, the high pinky.
All right.
Just do the high pinky. And, I wonder if that means anything else.
Well,
I don't know.
Well, sure.
But anyway, the idea is to touch pinkies with someone who you love and just let them know that it's more important to be human than to be a commodity. It's more important to be human than to be a cog. It's more important to be a human than to be part of a doctrine that is anti-human.
Thank you. All right. Hi, Pinky.
Hi, Pinky.
That was pianist, composer, and arranger Arturo O'Farrell, artistic director of the Fandango at the Wall Project and the Afro-Latin Jazz Alliance. Go to our website to see Arturo in action and find more information on all of this week's guests. That's lauraflanders.org. What can you do to help? Well, a quick and easy way to help us is to spread the word by going to iTunes and writing a short review. Even just a rating or a thumbs up in Apple Podcasts helps. Want to do that bit more? Become a sustaining member or make a one-time donation. We are kicking off our next year of building movement power through media by celebrating the last 10 years and launching the next with an ambitious $40,000 fundraising goal. We want to meet it by the end of the year. And we could if everyone listening right now gave just a couple of dollars a month. Do your part. Go to www.lauraflanders.org/donate. Next week, Pulitzer Prize winner and author Chris Hedges will join me with his Farewell to America. And Savitri D. and Reverend Billy of the Stop Shopping Choir. The Laura Flanders Show airs over the Pacifica Radio Network and other fine community radio stations. If it's not on the air where you live, please contact your local station and ask them to add it, or write to us and we'll help. That's Laura, L-A-U-R-A, at lauraflanders.org. In addition to helping others hear the show on the radio, subscribe to this podcast and receive my commentaries every week, plus extra mini-casts and much more. You can do all that at lauraflanders.org/listen. The show is produced by yours truly, along with Stephen Martinez Partida, Monica Mohapatra, Donica D'Souza, Charlotte Carpenter, Jeannie Hopper, Joanna Pinto, and Dominic Marcella. Until the next time, stay strong, stay curious. Write to me. I'm always happy to hear from you. That's Laura, L-A-U-R-A, at lauraflanders.org, and I do my best to respond. Till the next time, stay strong, stay curious, and thanks for listening. I'm Laura Flanders.